how did you get into the entertainment industry?
I got into it through, I studied film and television at university, and my plan was sort of, I had dreams of becoming a filmmaker. I had dreams of becoming like the next Steven Spielberg or Quentin Tarantino. Dreams that were quickly squashed. But so I found out at university, while I was at university, that I really enjoyed video editing. And so that's sort of what I wanted to get into. And then after I graduated, I was lucky enough to get a job as a post-production runner / edit assistant at a post-production facility in London. And we worked on some daytime TV shows that you probably haven't heard of, called 60 Minute Makeover, which was like it's like a changing rooms thing, but everything had to be done in 60 minutes. And it was really good fun. I learned a lot, and I was working with a bunch of video editors who'd been around for a long time. I sort of really was, looking forward to making that my career path. This was in 2008, and then the financial crash happened, and I got made redundant at that company after being there 5 months. Managed to find another job in the industry, luckily, about 6 weeks later. But that wasn't like a particularly good time for me. Like, I didn't enjoy the second job I managed to find. And I sort of, I'd always, since I was a kid, harbored dreams of working for like a video games magazine, but for some reason I never thought it was like a viable possibility. I'd never really explored it. I'd never really done any writing before. So I wasn't really enjoying myself where I was in London. So I thought, why don't I just give this a go and see if this works? And I was playing Final Fantasy 13 at the time. And I remember being really disappointed with it after being really hyped up about it. So I thought, I'll write a review of this because I've got quite strong feelings about this game. So I wrote a review on Final Fantasy 13. And I decided to just, shoot my shot, and I sent it in to Official PlayStation magazine, and a couple of the other magazines that Future Publishing published, PSM3 magazine, Games Master. But I figured, sort of when I sent it in, like, so many people like me, kids who love video games, they're probably all going to be sending in their own reviews. They're probably all going to be, trying to get work experience and things like that. So I thought, I've got to try and do something to make myself stand out a bit. So I got my wife, then girlfriend, who was like a graphic designer at the time. She helped me make like a mock magazine. So we did a nicely designed mini magazine with my review in it. Which she designed like a front cover for it, and I think I did another couple of reviews as well. I did Uncharted 2, which had recently come out, and FIFA 11, I think. And we did like a cover mount, because magazines back in the day used to have like a demo disc cover mount on them. So I was like, I'll do a cover mount, but my cover mount was a KitKat. So I put a KitKat on the front of this magazine with like the tagline, "Give me a break," because I thought, that's good. That'll get their attention. They'll have to thank me for the KitKat, surely, out of politeness at the very least. So I sent that off, and yes, it got their attention. Luckily for me, my writing was good enough that it got their attention, and I got to do 2 weeks work experience at Official PlayStation magazine. And at the time, they just launched this video project called First Play, which was like the video version of Official PlayStation magazine, if you like. And it was the predecessor to what PlayStation Access then became. So I did a week's worth of experience writing on the magazine, and whilst I was there, I let them know that I had video editing experience. And they're like, "Oh, that's interesting, we just launched this video thing." So I did another week's work experience on First Play, doing like little video edits and things. And I think that's what sort of got me in the door. That sort of mix of skills, being able to video edit and write, was just very sort of appealing to them at that time. So after I did my work experience, I sort of kept on nagging, and eventually they relented and let me do like little 150 word reviews. I think the first game I ever reviewed for like as a paid freelancer was a game called Naughty Bear, and I did a 150 word review of it, got paid £15 for it. And it was like, to me, that was mega exciting, seeing my name in ink in the magazine. I was like, oh, that's amazing. And so I just sort of made sure that everything I wrote freelance was on time, was as good as I could possibly make it. And I became like a reliable freelancer for them. And over the course of the next year, I did bigger and bigger and bigger bits of freelance, culminated in me being sent to Sweden to DICE studio for like the worldwide reveal of Battlefield 3, and I got to write like a 4-page feature in official PlayStation magazine for that. And I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. Oh, it's so exciting. And at that time, First Play ended and PlayStation Access in its first iteration began, and there was a vacancy for a script writer, and I think because of the work that I'd done over the previous year, and also because I had video editing skills, which was appealing, and it meant I could do extra things, I was offered a job as a starfighter on PlayStation Access back in 2011. And that's sort of where it began, really. PlayStation Access was like a magazine show for 2 years or so before it became the YouTube channel that it is today. Originally, I was just a script writer behind the scenes, but as like the channel evolved and grew, I did little bits on camera, and that sort of evolved and grew. And I was very lucky to sort of be able to learn all of the skills that I have today in terms of writing, but mainly presenting, because I'd never done any sort of in front of the camera work before. I did it out of necessity because we had little segments of the videos that had to have a person in them. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And it's like quite a unique and lucky position I was in, really, to be in a position where I was able to basically just learn the skills on the job. And that's the rest, I guess, is history pretty much, and it's grown into the channel that it is today. So, you know, there are lots of people who want to get a job in games media and entertainment media. And sort of the advice I always give them is, at the beginning, don't just ask for a job, or, you know, don't just, you know, show people what you can do. Like, show them a video you've made, show them a review you've written, you know, make yourself stand out a little bit. But, you know, it's a combination of loads of things. You've got to have talent, you've got to have luck, and you've got to have persistence. And I was very lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And the rest just sort of all fell into place for me.
Yeah, I'm sure the KitKat helped quite a lot as well.
I hope so. Yeah. And I also think, like, if I had have liked Final Fantasy 13, would any of that have happened? I don't know. So I often credit Final Fantasy 13. Like, I'm really glad I didn't like it, because I don't know if I would be here today.
If this is right, so you, Nathan, and Dave created We Are Reach. Yeah. Like that small company. How did you three first come together?
We first came together, well, interestingly enough, when I sent off that review of Final Fantasy 13, Nathan was the reviews editor on official PlayStation magazine at the time. So he was the person who answered my email and offered me work experience. So that was how I met Nathan, and that was in 2010 that I did my work experience there. And then a year later, it was around summer 2011 that Access started. And I was, as I say, I was doing bits of freelance, so I was already known to that team. Nathan was moved off of official PlayStation magazine and onto PlayStation Access. He was sort of heading it up. And because I already had like a working relationship with him, he knew he could trust me, and he knew I had like video editing skills as well. He offered me the scriptwriter's job. At the same time, Future Publishing, which was where we were working at the time, were hiring a couple of video editors, one of which was Dave, and one of which was Dan Wheeler, who you may know from the channel as well. He currently works with We Are Reach. He's our head of studio now. But Dave was hired to work on PlayStation Access, so it was Nath, Dave, and myself, plus a team of 3 others initially at Future Publishing. So that's sort of how we met, and we just were lucky enough to stay with PlayStation Access through the years. It moved from Future Publishing to Yogscast. We worked at Yogscast for 3.5 years. Never really part of like the wider Yogscast network. We sort of just were, you know, we worked in our little space and made PlayStation Access. And it got to a point where we realized, you know, we could probably do this for ourselves. And credit to Yogscast, they were very accommodating with us, and they were like, you know, okay, and they supported us in the creation of our own business, and PlayStation as well. We're also, you know, we're incredibly lucky to have a good working relationship with them, and they were, you know, were good enough to give us the contract, and so that enabled us to set up We Are Reach in 2017. And since then we've grown and we've expanded, and we do other bits aside from PlayStation Access that probably aren't as widely known. We do videos for other YouTube channels, but we have, like, you know, extra people who have different teams do that kind of stuff. So Dave and myself and Nath are still very much sort of focused on the PlayStation side of things. That's where sort of like our passion is, and I think that's been crucial to the success of PlayStation Access, I think, is that we all are genuine fans of PlayStation. You know, I am a self-confessed PlayStation fanboy. I've owned a PlayStation since I was 12, never owned any other kind of console. It's always been PlayStation for me. So yeah, it's sort of like, we met we've known each other and worked with each other for 11 years now. And yeah, have had We Are Reach for the last 5 years.
And I think one thing that I noticed quite a lot when I watched the channel is you seem like a very closely knitted team. But obviously over the years you've had people come and go, you know, Elle and Rosie and Ash. So what's it like in, you know, maybe those first few weeks when a new team member joins?
It's well, we like to say we're very nice and welcoming and accommodating, and I think we are, and I think we have been incredibly lucky with the people that we've brought on board. You mentioned Elle and Rosie and Ash there. All three of them, when they came on board, you know, it's a long process hiring someone, especially if you're hiring someone who's going to be a visible part of the PlayStation Access team, because as you say, you have to make sure the chemistry is right, like, because that's, you know, audiences will pick up on that very quickly. Like, the gaming audience is a very savvy audience, and as soon as you're not, you know, if there's any kind of atom of inauthenticity there, they will pick up on it. But we were very lucky with everyone we've hired. I mean, Rosie and Ash are still with us, and I think they're a fantastic part of the team. Elle was a fantastic addition when she was with us. She was with us for a year, and then has moved on to like bigger and better things, and she's now presenting for BAFTA and stuff, which is like amazing to see. But yeah, I think I would like to say it's great the first couple of weeks. Obviously there's, you know, Nathan, Dave and I have known each other for a long time, but I don't think, or I wouldn't like to think that ever creates any kind of difficulty in coming on board the team. We are, as you see us on the camera, like, when you watch the channel, that is our genuine relationship. There's very little sort of acting, or maybe there's a little bit of hamming it up maybe in a live stream. But you know, if you were ever to come into the office and speak to us, you would speak to the people that you have seen on the channel for all those years. Like, we want to make it feel like a group of friends, basically. So that's always what we've set out to do. And yeah, I think that's one of the things probably I'm most proud of, is that we've managed to achieve that, not just with the people who work on PlayStation Access, but the people who work with We Are Reach on all of the other bits and pieces we do. We are still quite a small business, and it feels like sort of a close-knit family. And that's, you know, that's one of our biggest challenges, I think, going forward as we grow and expand, trying to maintain that sort of culture of collaboration and closeness and honesty. But yeah, I like to think it's a pretty seamless experience bringing someone new into the team. Obviously it takes a long time. We have to go through lots of people who would apply for those jobs and make sure that we do get the right person. But you know, I think our track record so far, everyone we've hired has been amazing.
Yeah, that definitely comes across on like camera. And obviously you're over like 2 million subscribers now. Did you ever think Access would get to that point?
No, absolutely not. Like, I don't think we had any. I remember when we first started, when we first took over the channel already existed, but it was sort of like, you know, PlayStation UK, and a few trailers were on there. I think it had about 12,000 subscribers when we took over the channel. And we did amazingly in the first year. We got to 100,000 subscribers. I remember by the end of that year, I think it was 2013 when the channel started, around March time, and PS4 came out November of that year. And that was what sort of again, luck and being in the right place at the right time. Like PlayStation went through a huge surge of like popularity and growth. Not that it wasn't popular before, but PS4 was like an incredible success. Like the time when PS4 launched was just an amazingly exciting time. People were so hungry for PlayStation content. YouTube was different back then. YouTube is changes drastically and very quickly, and you have to, there's always you always have to adapt and change. But yeah, we got to 100,000 subscribers before PS4 came out, and we were like over the moon with that. We're like, I can't believe we got 100,000 subscribers. This is amazing. And I remember soon after that we joined Yogscast. I'm sure you've probably heard of Yogscast before. Huge network, multiple channels, multiple millions of subscribers, and I remember joining them and being quite intimidated by the fact that here we are with 100,000 subscribers, and you look down the room and there's all these other channels that have got 1 million, 2 million. The main channel's got 7 million subscribers. And feeling like a very small fish in a big ocean of very large fish. But our sort of over the PS4 generation, it was an amazing time of growth. And we were lucky enough that the content that we enjoyed making and that we liked to make resonated with people during that period. I remember being given the task quite early on of, okay, Rob, your job is going to be to make list features. Just make list features every Friday, every week, that sort of celebrate gaming culture, like videos that don't necessarily feel like other list features you might get, that a celebration of why we enjoy gaming. That was sort of like the brief. And those videos sort of, again, through a mixture of me sort of pouring myself into them, them being sort of as authentic as I could make them, but also just being the right bit of content at the right time, hitting that right audience. They sort of exploded in popularity, and that was like an amazing period for us as well. And so to answer your question, no, I never thought we would get to 2 million subscribers. Kind of the target of subscribers always sort of moves, right? So we got to 100,000, right? Okay, let's get to 200,000. And then we got to 500,000. You're like, oh, could we actually get to 1 million? And then it kept growing, and we got to 1 million. And I think when we got to 1 million, I remember thinking, okay, I'm happy with this. If we never go to 2 million, that's fine. Like, it's amazing that we got to 1 million. And like quite poetically, we got to 2 million, I think, on PS5 launch day. So it was like a full generational cycle from PS4 launching to PS5 launching. We hit 2 million subscribers, and it was a bizarre feeling. So no, the short answer is no. I didn't think we would ever hit that number, and it still sort of amazes me that we have, really. And it's something that I and we are very proud of.
With the bigger following, have you noticed any like perks or drawbacks to that?
Well, I guess the perks are that lots of people tune into the videos you make, and that's always like really nice to see. I think we've also been very lucky, well, a mixture of luck and careful sort of curation of the kind of community we want to build, like the PlayStation Access comment section and our live stream chat and our community that's sort of grown around the channel is like overwhelmingly a very positive and welcoming place to be, and that's always what we've sort of set out to make it. I know that's not always the case with channels that grow large, but we've always made a conscious effort to be as warm and celebratory and as inclusive as we possibly can be. You get lots of YouTube content that's negative around games, or lots of content that goes into the sort of angry review to this, or why I hate this, or why this is bad. And obviously we're the official channel of PlayStation UK, so that's never going to be something we're doing anyway. But I think even if we weren't official, making sort of a space that's just positive, that's celebratory. We're not there to sort of critique games, we're not there to review games, we're there to enjoy games and show games to people. And if people like those games, great. If they don't have to watch. And if they want to sort of join us and hang out and share in the positivity of the channel, then that's great. So to answer your question, no, I can't really think of any drawbacks of having like a big size. I guess like I've never really sort of thought about it in terms of like a drawback. We've never really had any issues with like, you know, toxicity or anything like that in the comments. Like our community is like an overwhelmingly good and happy place to be. So now I'd say probably I've only experienced perks, which are, you know, getting to interact with like a great group of people in the chat and on the live streams. And when we occasionally do live events, like we've done EGX a couple of times live on stage. We've not been able to do it for the last 2 years, obviously. I really hope that we can get back to doing it going forward. When you meet people in person who've like enjoyed your videos, that's sort of like a novelty I don't think will ever wear off when someone comes up to you and says, oh, I really like the work you do. Like, you know, it's an amazing feeling, and one that I don't think I'll ever get bored of. Like very, very occasionally someone will just randomly recognize me in the street, and it's always like, oh my god. It's always a strange moment, but a really nice moment. So yeah, no, I don't think there are any drawbacks that I've experienced.
No, that's great. Speaking of like fame, I know you've got to interview like lots of, you know, big like voice actor names or just actors and game developers like Hideo Kojima. When was the time you were most starstruck, if you get starstruck those?
That's a good question, because the time that I was most sort of like, oh my god, was definitely meeting Hideo Kojima, because he's been like a hero of mine for ages. I was very unfortunate that the first time I interviewed him, I actually had food poisoning. So that sort of that moment of what should have been a very exciting moment for me was somewhat dampened by the fact that all I could think of was, oh god, I feel so ill. But I was then lucky enough to interview him again for Death Stranding when Death Stranding came out. That was, you know, amazing. He's a great person to speak to. You know, he's like a rock star of gaming. He's just very cool. Sure. And he's, you know, from my experience, from my limited experience having spoken to him, like a very humble, down to earth man. He's always been very sort of like polite and pleasant and really nice to deal with. But in terms of being starstruck, I've met like a couple of people from outside of the gaming industry through various things that we've done on PlayStation Access, and a few years ago when the Harry Potter studio tour opened in Leavesden Studios, we did like a little segment on it for Access. So I got to go there just before it opened and interview some of the cast of the films. That was pretty cool. I remember interviewing Rupert Grint in the Gryffindor common room. It was a completely surreal moment. Interviewing Tom Felton in the set of the potions room. That was amazing as well. I did an interview with 3 of the Stranger Things cast as well, around the time that season 2 came out. Also, that was amazing. But they were kids at the time, so there was like, you know, there was a degree of professionalism that I had to maintain. I couldn't just be like, oh, it's the Stranger Things kids, amazing, I love you. And then I got to interview Robert Perez as well. I don't know how much about football you know, but Robert Perez, like an Arsenal legend. Right. Very cool meeting him as well for like a FIFA thing that we were doing. Probably the Harry Potter studio tour, I'd say, is the moment I've been most starstruck, because it was a combination of not just the Harry Potter cast, but also being inside the Harry Potter sets at the same time. It's a very surreal experience that I will not forget in a hurry.
Is there anyone that's like you would love to interview? Like maybe someone from Lord of the Rings or something?
I mean, yes. I think probably Ian McKellen has got to be like
Yeah.
one of my all-time heroes. I'd probably cry if I met Ian McKellen. I think he's amazing. Amazing man. Like some of the stories you hear about him. I remember there was a story a few years ago about a show he was doing, a stage show he was doing in the West End that got cancelled for some reason, but he still turned up and just sat on stage talking to the audience for 2 or 3 hours. And I remember thinking, that sounds better than the actual show that would have been there. Like, yeah, I'd absolutely love to interview Ian McKellen. I've completely forgotten that I met and interviewed Andy Serkis as well at EGX one year, which again was another time that I was very starstruck. And then at E3, I saw but did not meet Elijah Wood again. And I sort of tried to get a photo with him, but he was just like walking away as I was trying to get through these crowds, other people trying to get selfies with him. So I sort of just, left it alone. But yeah, if I had to pick one person, my dream person to interview, I think I'd probably have to say Ian McKellen.
So I recently interviewed Jane Perry, who obviously plays Diana Burnwood.
She's Celine in Returnal as well, isn't she?
Yeah. She just won a BAFTA for that.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah, and so we talked about her like journey into voice acting, and I know I mentioned Elle as well, who has done a little bit of voice acting. Do you think with your connections, do you think you'd ever want to go into voice acting yourself?
I would love to. Like, it's never something I've seriously considered. And I don't know if I would have like a route into it. I don't really know anyone who does it. Besides Elle, I know Elle's dabbled in it a little bit. If the stars ever aligned and I was able to do the voice of some random video game character, then absolutely I'd love. I love mucking about on camera. If you couldn't tell, I love doing silly voices. I love doing silly characters. So yes is the short answer. If the opportunity ever arose, it is something I would probably jump at. Yeah,
well, that's fair enough. This might be like a bit of a big question, but why do you play games? Like, do you think it's like escapism or just for fun?
I think it's a good question. I've done a video specifically on I think 7 reasons we play games, and there are various reasons. And I guess it depends a lot on the stage of your life that you're in as well. Like the reason I play games now is very different to the reason I played games when I first started playing games when I was a kid. And I remember as a kid when I first saw video games, just being completely mesmerized and transfixed by them, and thinking, this is like just a magical experience. And like whatever game I saw was just amazing, and I just was desperate to have a go on it. But I think as games have changed over the years and have become more sophisticated and cater to different tastes, specifically adult tastes, games are increasingly made for an adult audience. And I think I don't know the exact stats, but the average age of a gamer is now far higher than it ever was before. And I think as our generation grows older, I can see that only rising. Like I expect video games to be like movies, just a thing that everyone enjoys to some degree, whether you're like a serious gamer or whether just occasionally you play a game. So initially when I was a kid, the reason I played games was just because I found them magical and fun, and I absolutely loved playing them. Nowadays it's I tend to go for the more sort of shorter single player experiences. Like as I've grown older, and I imagine this will be the case for many people, like the time you have to play games sort of shrinks and goes down as various adult responsibilities get in the way. And so I think probably the main reason would have to be escapism, but also I just I'm a sucker for a really pretty thing, right? I love a beautiful game. I absolutely love just walking around in Death Stranding. Like I find that incredibly meditative and therapeutic. I can just walk around that world for hours listening to slightly sad music as it rains. Like I love that kind of thing. I love just being able to relax, which is why I probably have a tendency to stay away from things that are really, really difficult and hard. And as soon as I get killed by a boss more than once or twice, I'm like, no, not playing that. But yeah, games games that let me explore things, or games that show me something that I haven't seen before. You know, yeah, it's a degree of escapism for sure. Yeah, I think that would have to be my answer. It started out when I was a kid just because, wow, that's amazing. I've never seen anything like this before. And now it's like, you know, the same escapism you would get from watching your favorite movie or like reading a good book. It's that same kind of feeling. And I like games that allow me to relax as well. Like I play games to relax now, to unwind, if you like.
I guess that is one good thing about how games have evolved. Like, they're like big stories now that kind of mirror that feeling you get from watching a TV series or a film.
Absolutely.
So I asked this to Ash, just 'cause I thought it was interesting, but what is your favorite glitch?
Oh, okay.
Or like a funny one or something.
My favorite glitch. I mean, it's one that immediately sprung to mind as soon as you asked the question, so I probably would have to go with it. Is in Skyrim, which is a game that is no stranger to the old glitch. There's like a glitch where when you load it up, like your horse just seems to like levitate across like the whole world, and you'll get on the horse and it'll just like it will rise hundreds of feet into the air, and you can sort of like fly across the land and kind of steer it, and you have to, and you know, when it lands it dies horribly and you crumple to death, and that's sort of like, then you reload it and the glitch ends. But I've had that a few times when loading up Skyrim, and it just the crazy flying horse is one that I can think of immediately. I'm sure there have been others that I've enjoyed in the past, but that's the one that immediately springs to mind.
Yeah, Skyrim glitches are always the best, I think.
Yeah, it's part of the charm.